Okay, there we go. Sorry. Just before we begin tonight, I know you've all done it, but I'm going to invite everyone to look and just let yourself be absorbed in this exquisite altar. You know, Swamiji was a man of such refinement. Just everything he loved, everything he touched, you could just feel it came from a place of just that. Refinement's the perfect word. And this altar tonight feels that way to me. And just so beautifully done. And each time I've walked out here since it was built, there's just Swami everywhere. I feel like I'm being held by him. So I'm just inviting everyone else to take a moment and have that experience. We have a lovely program for tonight that will consist of a very short meditation at the beginning, music, and then I'll give a brief talk that will be followed by 4 other brief talks on different qualities that Swamiji possessed and shared with us. And the way that will go, let me just grab my notes to make sure I get it right, is that first we'll listen to Swamiji reading the short reading on each of these qualities from the Affirmations book. So Swamiji himself will read it, then somebody will come up and give a 10-minute talk on that quality, followed by some music, followed by a minute or so of silence, and then we'll move on. And then we'll have an opportunity in and around music at the end to offer rose petals, and we'll end the evening by singing peace, listening to and then singing peace as Swamiji so often did in the last years of his life. So let's begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, beloved Swamiji, we humbly bow to you all. Divine Mother, great masters, Swamiji, be with us this evening. Help us to feel the desire to love God as perfectly as you did. Let your guiding presence fill us with courage to pursue this path and to open our hearts. Let your perfect love remove all fear, dissolve desires, and call us back to thee with your perfect magnetism. Oh, peace. Amen. Please be seated.
Swami. In thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. Thinking in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. If you want to cross the ocean of delusion, if you want to cross the ocean of delusion, shaming the white lotus in purity, shaming the white lotus in purity, beyond all duality, Guru, image of Brahma, deliver us from delusion. Guru, image of Brahma, deliver us from delusion. Thinking in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. Thinking in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. If you want to cross the ocean of delusion, if you want to cross the ocean of delusion, shaming the white lotus in purity, shaming the white lotus in purity, beyond all duality, Guru, image of Brahma, deliver us from delusion. Guru, image of Brahma, deliver us from delusion. Thinking in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. Thinking in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. If you want to cross the ocean of delusion, if you want to cross the ocean of delusion, shaming the white lotus in purity, shaming the white lotus in purity, beyond all duality, Guru, image of Brahma, deliver us from delusion. 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 Thinking in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. lotus feet of thy Guru. If you want to cross the ocean of delusion, if you want to cross the ocean of delusion, shaming the white lotus in purity, shaming the white lotus in purity, beyond all duality, Guru, image of Brahman, deliver us from delusion. 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 Think ye in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. Think ye in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. Think ye in thy heart, lotus feet of thy Guru. Think ye in thy heart, lotus feet of thy
Taking the words, the meaning, the vibration of this beautiful chant into our hearts, along with the lotus feet of our Guru. Let's meditate together now for just a few minutes. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It is surprisingly difficult to know that you have about 20 minutes max to try and say something that's cohesive and poignant and uplifting and inspiring about somebody as great as Swamiji, because all of us here, I'm sure, could just start talking about Swamiji and we would find ourselves hours into it. Really, that's probably not hyperbole. He was just pure greatness. And the longer I live in this life, the more absolutely, utterly clear that is to me. I've been saying it for years. I realized today I met Swamiji in 1980. As you all know, I had a little bit of an unusual path with him, but nonetheless, I've been around both Swamiji and the whole Ananda family and vibration for over 40 years. And I've been saying and feeling a lot of good things. I think we all have. But I find in that ever new way that all of what I thought I knew about him last week or last month or 5 years ago or whatever it was just keeps presenting itself in a deeper and deeper way where I find myself thinking, oh my God, who was this man? And so where do you come in and focus? I know that when I was, after I was in India in September, not long after that, I don't remember when it was, Diana came through here on her way to the village, and she was staying in Iris at the community. So we were all meeting with her, and she was just telling stories about how the work, excuse me, was unfolding in India. And I'm sure most of you have been hearing and know the work really primarily in India, but all over the world, the Ananda work, these teachings, they're just exploding. It's remarkable. I mean, the growth is exponential, not just the number of people that come, but the sincerity, the enthusiasm, the deep love. You just watch people everywhere, and it's like somebody's just opening their hearts and pouring this love in. It's just everywhere you look. And Diana was speaking about some of that, I don't know what. She was saying something like, well, Swamiji always wanted the Indians to teach in India and a few other things like that. And it just, I know I've said these words before, but I said to her, he knew everything from the very beginning. He knew all of what's happening now. This wouldn't surprise him at all. And he laid it out in such a way that all of us, every one of us, could just take as big a bite as we could take and digest it, and then take a bite and digest it. And the work could spread here, and it could spread there, and it could go here, and it could get deeper. And yes, the Indians are, in fact, doing most of the teaching in India by now. That's just one example. But Swamiji did an absolutely extraordinary job of, it wasn't like he was trying to hide his greatness from us. That's not really what he was trying to do. But he was so utterly devoted to Master. He was such a perfect disciple that there was one moment, he tells that story when he was walking around the land. at the village, and he had the thought, oh, look at what I've done. And then immediately he said, now how's that going to make you feel? Are you going to feel good about that? And he said to himself, no. And the realization came, I didn't do any of this. Master did it. God did it. And I think it's the only time that he's ever shared with us that he had any thought other than, Master is doing all of this through me, to the point where you felt Swamiji, of course you did, but you didn't feel Swamiji like, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing that. It was just so, with just such utter joy, like a child. Oh, look at what Master's done through me now. Look at this. Look at this. I've had this really unusual week. I went up to the village last week. Many of you know there was a colony leaders retreat. I was really looking forward to it. Just 3 days in the village and with all of the colony leaders and Jyotish and Devi. People came from all around the world. And at 6 o'clock the second morning, one of the people who was attending came and knocked on my door and said to me, I'm having chest pressure, chest pain. It's been lasting for over an hour. I've had it for 2 weeks off and on. It wakes me up from my sleep. I'm very short of breath, and my blood pressure has been like 220/140. This was at 6 o'clock in the morning. I said to her, I think we need to go to the emergency room. And of course, it was sort of like, really? You think I need to go? Yes, I actually think. Anyway, she's fine. I mean, other than she has very high blood pressure. But the point of it is that I was in the emergency room from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. that day, not at all in Ananda village or at the meetings. And then I came back, and a very dear friend of mine on Tuesday had this really extensive triple-level back surgery. So I went over to Oakland, and I've been staying with her both in the hospital, then brought her home. So I'm telling you this to say, I have been in and around monitors beeping, respirators going off, loudspeakers calling code blues, the hustle and bustle of hospital, which I just said to myself, wow, does anybody ever really heal here? I mean, it was unbelievable to me. It is quintessentially different from our teachings. So I came home yesterday, back over to this side of the bay, and woke up this morning, and I'm saying to myself, you need to get up there and give a talk about Swamiji tonight. You've just been in these hospitals with these respirators and monitors and doctors and nurses and whatever, all of it. It's a scene. It's quite a scene there, actually. So I set my alarm for 4:15 this morning, and I got up, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Typically, I would just sit to meditate, but I started watching videos of Swamiji. I mean, I think I've watched at least 100 videos today. Some of them were like montages of him, just music playing in the background. We've all seen them, images of him walking down the street with people holding their arm with him, some of him just sitting around at dinner with people, some of him meditating or lecturing or whatever it is, whatever it was. And I love that one scene, which I'll bet many of you have seen, where he's sitting with a woman in a radio studio, and she's interviewing him, and he says something that he just thought was so funny. And for over a minute, he laughs hysterically. And she's sitting there looking. It doesn't faze him at all. He just finds the humor. He laughs and laughs. But I could not find even a split-second image where his eyes were not filled with pure love. It's like walking up to this picture. You just feel that you could fall into those beautiful gray-blue eyes and find yourself exactly where you knew you always wanted to be. Whether it was devotion, I was seeing, whether it was laughter, because his eyes laugh, his whole body laughs. He becomes the quality, that spiritual quality, love, wisdom, compassion, concentration. Doesn't matter what it is. I watched him sitting at tables with, I don't know how many different people. You can all do it. I'm suggesting strongly that we do whenever we find ourselves down or out or confused or shaken, just out of the hospital, whatever it means. When he talked to people, he was right with you. That man's eyes never wavered. There could be so much going on around him, but Swamiji's attention was focused, eyes wide open, and compassionate and empathic. You could just feel it. It didn't matter what the mood was. He was there. He was in it with you. Well, you do that for about 4 hours and see how you feel. It was like, why didn't I never just sit and watch videos? I never did meditate in the morning, by the way, but I considered that a meditation. It was just so extraordinary spending time with Swamiji. Swamiji came to teach us just so many things. He came to translate all of what we call truth, Sanatana Dharma, all of it in all of those ways: divine love, pure wisdom, presence, willingness, enthusiasm. He was just filled with enthusiasm for everything he did. But he was filled with every one of those qualities, and he came to share it with us in a way that we could take a bite and go home and put it to work. Whoever we were, wherever we were, even now, even right now, you know, I've said this to all of you many times before. I just told you I met Swamiji in 1980. I immediately started having time with him, in large part in the beginning because my husband and I, we had money compared to Ananda. We did not have money, but compared to people at Ananda. So Swamiji would do fundraising things, and for people who donated certain amounts, you could go up and have dinner with Swamiji, or just, so we were frequently at dinner with Swamiji, or services. I was not close with him. I wasn't sitting around having tea and coffee with him every night. But I was in his presence a lot. And as the years went by, and this was something else he knew that I didn't know, he just started paying more and more attention. It wasn't personal so much. It wasn't like, oh, great, here's Shanti. It was, he knew exactly what the work was that he wanted to do through me, and he was preparing me. Now, I didn't know that at the time. It took me many, many years to look back and say to myself, now, why did he say, walking into a restaurant with 25 people, I want to sit right across from Shanti? Why did he say that? Terrified me at the time. I remember it. He was just giving me energy, like he gave everybody energy. But I didn't feel that kind of personal closeness with Swamiji. And then one day, probably, I don't know, honestly, but maybe 8 months ago, I was meditating. And I had an experience of, I just had the experience. It's hard to describe that because you're not looking for it, you're not thinking about it. Suddenly, I was in the midst of such pure love. It just brought tears to my eyes. And in that moment, it came to me how much Swamiji loved me. And I felt that, and I let myself rest in it, because I just never considered myself one of those people. But I felt his love as purely as he loved Jyotish Devi or Asha or Dhyana, or we could go on and on. And the next thought that I had was, it wasn't a thought, but it was a realization. He loves all of us that way. He loves every soul, not loved, still. He loves us. And I was reading something in Narayani's book today. I'm going to read a little bit of it to you before I stop. But the words to Children of God are printed out, the song from the oratorio, in her book. And the last two lines, I know the last line is, it needs by your sight, but what's the line right before that? Everybody's singing it in their head.
Children rejoice.
For lo, the kingdom of God comes in full splendor. I love that anyway, it comes in full splendor. It needs but your sight. That is so beautiful right there. That was that whole experience. Of course, Swamiji wrote that, but it was the whole experience that I was having with Swamiji that is true for every soul, right? That love is there constantly in its full splendor, but not until we see it can we, and not see it with human eyes, see it with our heart, feel it, know it, and it's right there. I remember I called Jyotish and Devi. If they don't think I'm crazy now, they never will, because I do these kinds. I said to them, I just realized how much Swamiji loves me. And they said, well, of course he loves you. It was like, but again, he loves everybody. It was so enormous to feel God's love in that way and to know what, and he just fashioned it for each individual soul. He knew what we needed, when we needed it, and he was just there waiting for us to wake up to it. And he waited, and he waited. And he didn't quit, by the way. He still gave me my jobs to do and my work to do and the inspiration and support and all of the lessons, and has helped me grow even when I didn't know, but he knew. And he knows even now. It's just such a huge and magnanimous, there's no words for it, because truly one of those things that is beyond words. That's what the love of God is. And always, always, he was working in the name of Master. Always. He never, how many times did we ever hear him speak, even 5 minutes without mentioning Master? Such perfect attunement, such absolute, utter beauty about discipleship and loving God. That great soul was always giving that away. I want to read this little thing to you. Some of you will remember it, because Swamiji was in India in 2013, and in March of that year, so we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of his Mahasamadhi. So of course, April 21st, 2013 is when he passed. But he was in India until March, and then he went back to Assisi. And Narayani wrote in this book, in a chapter called Moksha, which is, of course, near the end, that when Swamiji came back to Italy, she said he was totally changed. And not changed like he looked sick, but she said, whereas usually he would invite somebody over every day to be with him, he he was almost in that entire week, several weeks, never saw anybody but her and Sergio, and that he spoke very little, even to them. She said one day he said to her, I feel that I'm disappearing. And she said, of course, he wasn't eating very much, so he actually was physically getting smaller, but she knew that's not what he meant. But she said he was just going more and more and more inward and less in the world. Again, not speaking, not eating, barely sleeping, just very, but you know, nobody had any idea that Swamiji was leaving. You know, it came as an utter shock. I'm sure many of you remember. I remember I was over at Barry's in Menlo Park that night, 11 o'clock, my phone rang, and it was Asha. And I'll never forget the tone of her voice. She said to me, come right away. I think Swamiji's dying. You know, just like that. Like, I mean, Swamiji had been so sick for so long. 3 years before, I was looking at him at the expanding light one night, and I said to myself, if he's not here tomorrow morning, I'm not going to be surprised. Nobody would have been surprised. But just right then, and death has a way of doing that at times, or yeah, death. People are getting older, or they've been sick, or still, it takes us by surprise in the moment. We're just not looking for it. And so Narayani said that that was what was going on. And that Easter, which was March 30th, so it was 3 weeks before he was dying. Easter was March 30th in 2013. He wrote a letter to all of us. All of us received it. Some of you will remember. But so this is 3 weeks before, when he was really internalizing, clearly getting ready to leave. Clearly he knew that, though nobody else knew that. But he wrote this letter, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it to you, not at all the whole letter, because it's very long, but I just want to help make a few points with it. Swamiji says, dear ones, I wish I could bless each and every one of you with a happy Easter. Now, he sent this to all of us around the world, so this went to probably thousands, maybe 1,000, I don't know how many, but a lot of people. Easter is a time symbolizing the eventual resurrection of our little individual selves into the one infinite self. I suggest at this time particularly that you study and meditate on the photograph of Master titled The Last Smile. And consider this amazing fact, Swamiji said. He knew that in just a few moments, he would be leaving his physical body forever. There's no thought of self in his eyes, of personal regret, or of sorrow. Clearly visible in his eyes and in his facial expression is his unconditional love for all mankind, his readiness to return again and again, as he put it, as long as one stray brother sits weeping by the wayside. Such love, Swamiji says, for ego-centered humanity is not even conceivable. And this was the love Jesus, too, felt for all humanity. People weep for him and his suffering on the cross. But his suffering was only for humanity that blindly rejects God's love and substitutes for it vengefulness and hatred. Now, Swamiji goes on. The letter's worth reading because he talks about how nothing in this world means anything to him anymore. Nothing. And he says, I close that, I'm not going to give you his exact words, but bluntly, he says, I'm not interested in all of the emotional trials that you're going through. They mean nothing to me. But then he goes on to say, but it's not because I love you less. It's because I love you more. But the point that I wanted to make here is that Swamiji could have just as easily spoken about himself. He knew he was leaving. He was in exactly the position that he was describing about Master. He says, imagine that. Master knew he was about to leave his body. And really imagine it. It's quite amazing that there was nothing but love in him at that moment for all of us. And I mean, could we imagine if we knew we were leaving? What would that be like? But Swamiji didn't talk about himself. Even then, even when he too knew that he would be leaving, always, always, it was about his guru. Always. Such extraordinary love of God. It's so beyond humility. It's not about humility. Humility is way too human. It's really about purely loving God, about developing those qualities. And when Master Swamiji says, concentrate on Master's eyes in that picture, I hadn't read that. It was not in my mind at 4 a.m. But watching Swamiji through all of these videos was a very similar experience. And I have said to myself all day today now, anytime anything is bothering me, anything, I'm just going to start watching YouTubes of Swamiji. Why would we not? You know, Karen and David and I were talking right before this program. I'll end with this now. Yesterday, we had a wedding rehearsal because you all know our friends are getting married on Sunday. And we were talking about the singers. And one singer after another is getting sick. So, you know, I imagine Karen's just has a big sheet out in front of her moving people around because now a soprano's gone, now a tenor's gone, now it's sort of interesting. And tonight, too, that's the situation. The choir is here, all of you who are here, but there are many of you who are not here. And I was fascinated from the wedding rehearsal until today when Lakshmi and Sai Ganesh and I were talking about it during a meeting. None of us were upset. We just didn't get upset. We just said, oh, okay, well, who will sing that part? We laughed about it a little bit yesterday. And I said to Karen, well, I think you're going to have to sing it. She said, well, I'll be at the keyboard, but I'll be singing. But with total lightness of being. And I thought, wow, Swamiji has done such a great job with us. You see, when you take life easily as it comes, you think, oh, of course, what difference if there's not a few singers? And that's the truth. It's all fine. The singers who are here will be beautiful and will feel the beauty of the music. But we could be in 100 other places today. And if 4 or 5 singers got sick, believe me, there would be panic. That's what was going on, I was saying, at the hospital. It's like, who are these people? How can we possibly feel well around them? No, let's get everybody home to heal, not keep them in the hospital. But just like this too. And I said to Lakshmi, I think it was today, I said, you know, if Swamiji were here, this wouldn't faze him. Okay, everybody who's here will sing out with joy, and that's what it'll be. And then it's the first thing Karen and David said to me, oh, Swamiji would have loved this. We have the extraordinarily great, great, great good karma to have incarnated now, to have been in Swamiji's presence. Imagine it. He was a soul who Master said would achieve pure liberation when he died. Well, let me say out loud what we all know. That means he was pretty darn close every minute that he was alive, and we were near him. And that's what we've had in our lives. So let's all just rise up and meet him where he is. And I imagine Swamiji was very pleased how we are with the music today. And just all of the ways that all of us do that. And also, let's remember, he's there to remind us. We can just turn on a few videos, watch that man laugh, watch him love, and feel your own heart open to God.
Loyalty, my great spiritual teacher used to say, is the first law of God. Most people are fickle. They change their jobs, their spouses, their friends, their beliefs, their ideas, not because of any new expansion of awareness, but because they lack the simple power of perseverance. One must be loyal to one's principles, and not allow oneself to be ruled by sentiment. To be loyal to others and to one's assumed goals in life, not for sentimental reasons but in the name of principle, is the way of divine progress. Perseverance can be difficult, for in every undertaking there is a certain amount of dull routine. Don't be ruled, therefore, by likes and dislikes, but do whatever has to be done. If it is right, let nothing intervene until the job is finished.
It's a great blessing for me to be able to share a few words on this anniversary of Swami's Moksha. I moved to Ananda Village 40 years, I'm not going to get through this. I moved to Ananda Village 40 years ago, and I can say absolutely that if I have any quality, personal quality in me that is worthy of any respect, I learned it from Swamiji. It's funny, tonight I was trying to decide, should I wear white tonight? And I'm wearing this shirt because when I wore this shirt, every time Swami saw it, he said, "What a nice shirt." So, sir, this is for you. I want to talk about loyalty a little bit, and then I want to share some personal stories about Swami and how that worked with him. On another talk I heard, I also was listening to talks to prepare for tonight, Swami said, loyalty is absolutely essential if we are to grow. That's quite a thing to say. It's absolutely essential if we are to grow. He also said loyalty is what propels us to change. Because we tend to live in our likes and dislikes. And in I guess, pop psychology, they call it pulling a geographic. Someone's having a hard time, so they move to another city hoping that everything will change. But in fact, what needs to change is within us. And watching Swamiji, when he met Master and committed to Master, that was it. Total loyalty and commitment. Because then whenever something came up that was difficult, change not one whit of my circumstances, change only me. Let what comes of its own, let it come. Now that's a great thing to say, but we can only hold on to that if we actually have a pole star. And if you fix yourself to the pole star when things get difficult, in modern society, it's too easy. People change jobs, locations, spouses, whatever it happens to be. And then we move to a different place. Loyalty is essential if we are to grow. Swami showed incredible loyalty to us. If you had a friend, and every time the chips were down and something difficult happened, you were there. Your friend was there for you. Every time you were in difficulty, your friend was there for you. And then one day your friend says to us, or says to you, "I could use a hand, I'm moving next weekend, can you help?" You're right there. That was the loyalty that Swami showed to us and that he built in us. I would do anything for that man. I want to share a few stories. When we talk about, when we say the prayer, after saints and sages of all religions, dearest friend and guide, Swami Kriyananda, think about that. Dearest friend. People are more important than things. Swami never once, to my knowledge, in any area, lost sight of that fact. And that's quite a thing to say. He said at one point, I could turn my back if Master wanted me to. See, that's the loyalty. If Master wanted me to, I could turn my back on Ananda and never think of it again. This is after he'd spent most of his life there. building that work. His loyalty to us, the word in Sanskrit, chela, is disciple, but it's also child. I think it was Asha who said when Swami passed, I'm not certain, the only adult has just left the room. Very sweet. We were all his children. What Shanti said, he loved us all equally. If you're here tonight, if you're watching online, if you're part of this family, you are Swami's child. And the Father will do anything for his child. So I want to just share a few stories. They're not about me personally, but I was at the village at the time and I knew that these things were happening. Swami was here to propel us forward. He was not here to build Ananda. Ananda's just a thing. Ananda is the vehicle that we use to help get closer to mastering God. And Swami, of course, never lost sight of that fact. That's part of the loyalty. So at one point up at the village, this is many years ago, there was a major village department, and Swami announced that so-and-so was going to take over that department. Now, I've done a lot of business stuff, and I was talking with one of the community founders who also knew how things worked, and I said, how long do you think it's going to be before that business comes a cropper, before that department starts having a serious problem? And he said, a year. And I said, 8 months. And he actually turned out to be right. It was 11 months. Now, Swami is smarter than I am. He knows people infinitely better than I do. He knows everyone's character better than I do. So if this other fellow and I both knew this was going to happen, do you think Swami did? So why would he do that? This created difficulties for the village because people are more important than things. And he would do this for our growth. And when I could see that, Swami would do anything to help you find God. That's really all that matters. The rest of it is just stuff. It's a dream. We're here to find God. And when I would see that, you can imagine the loyalty that built in me because I knew he would do that for me as well. There was one person, we had years ago a series of extremely difficult people at Ananda. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but fortunately they're gone. But that said, there was someone working at this, forgive me, I don't even remember what it's called, seclusion retreat or meditation retreat, whatever we're calling it now, up at the village, who was extremely difficult. And everyone was wanting that person fired to make the place better. And Swami said, okay, I'll hire him on my personal staff. Swami knew. It's the same thing, the loyalty. Swami would do anything to keep people that he felt, for whom he felt it was appropriate, to keep them at Ananda. He would give them enormous amounts of energy. Because the question is, what's right for you? It's not about this stuff. And I know sometimes there'd be someone who would sing at the village, and it was, I've heard better, let's say. And Swami would come up afterwards, and he was lavish with praise. And another time, someone would sing beautifully, and he'd come up and say, you missed a note there. What are we doing here? We're not here to sing well. We're not here to build the work. We're here to find God. That's loyalty. This is also sweet. When I was living at the village, we kind of learned it was sort of like a little bit of a secret, but not really. Swami would have a birthday, so everyone would be at the dome. There'd be 120 people there or something like that in the dome at Crystal Hermitage. So we're all there, and at the end of the evening, Swami would say, okay, thanks very much, and he would go down into his apartment, which was below. But if you hung out long enough, he'd come back up and open his presents. So most people had left, but there were some of us left. And he would open the presents, and he'd have delight with each one. And I thought this was so sweet. He opens a card, and he says, this is the best present I've ever gotten. And inside the card, it said, Swami, I vow to meditate 3 hours every day for the next year. And I thought, wow, that's the best present he's ever gotten. Isn't that sweet? Who's he putting first there? The meditation wasn't for his sake. Knowing that Swami would do anything for us is really worth meditating on. Why are we here? Why was he here? It's too easy. You know, the major delusion on this planet is if I could just get my circumstances to be a little better, then I'd be happy. Oh, and then the other delusion is then I'll freeze it in place so that nothing ever changes again, right? Swami didn't buy any of that. You know, he talked in Rays, I think it was, adding a new seasoning to the old messy bowl of pottage. We're constantly tinkering with the circumstances. Swami never lost sight of the fact that we're here to find God. And anything that he could do to help us in that, he would do. And in the early years, it was hard for me because it looked like the man was nuts. What are you doing? But over time, I could really come to see it. And then even more over time, when I couldn't come to see it, I knew it was there. And that certainty of knowledge, I will never be able to express that. Anyway.
Swami would love this tonight because I'm about to sing something I've never sung before. And there's all kinds of, he just would love that. He's probably really laughing right now. You're welcome, sir. Hey, you all can sing along with me. That would be great. Thy will.
Why don't we sing it twice?
Yeah, let's sing it twice.
They can join the second.
Yeah, join us the second time. Great. Thy will, thy will, thy will be done. All that I am is thine. All that I am. Nothing of man endures wonder or scorn. Birth
There are three kinds of human courage: blind, passive, and dynamic. Blind courage doesn't count the cost until it finds itself faced, horror-stricken, with the bill. Passive courage is the strength of will to adjust to reality, whatever it may be. And dynamic courage is the strength of will not only to accept reality, but to confront it with another reality of one's own making. There is a fourth kind of courage, not human, but divine. Divine courage comes from living in the awareness of God's presence within, and in the realization that He is the sole reality. Live more in Him, for nothing and no one can touch what you really are.
That divine courage that Swami just talked about is why it's very difficult for me to even talk about Swamiji and courage, because that level of courage that he had was the sense that God was in him always. So that sense of deep faith, I think, gave him immense relaxation and courage. I think he wasn't even there, actually, in truth. So there was no he to give courage to, but there was that deep sense of God moving through him. But he was also the world's best coach. And like many of our Living Wisdom school teachers who are also busy coaching in a similar way, he always knew how to find our next step and help us to grow toward where it was that he was modeling. And in the area of courage, I think his usual training methods were two. He asked us to put out a lot more energy than we usually ever wanted to, and usually fast, as quickly as possible, at now. And he also encouraged us to gain mastery over our reactive process. And those two things, like wind sprints for track stars, I think those are our wind sprints as devotees for gaining courage and energy and will as well. All those things are related. So the usual definition of courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. That's our go-to definition. But Swami gave a different definition. Take what comes and don't let it affect you. Whatever comes, just accept it and then face it and do it, deal with it. If that means just accepting it, great. But if you can meet it with a new reality bravely, courageously of your own, even better. So some of the practice sessions he gave, I got a short practice session yesterday from Swami. We had a Zoom lecture for a bunch of people around the country, and I sent out the wrong Zoom link to everybody, and it was 20 minutes away. And I just noticed 20 minutes before it's supposed to start. And so I had, my first reaction was, oh God, oh God, how could I have? And I heard my second coach, who's my live-in coach in the other room, say, don't waste time thinking about the mistake. What can we do about it, right? This is Swami speaking through David. And I just thought, yes, right. So, we dealt with it, we fixed it, and everyone showed up. I don't know how they checked their emails fast enough, but they did. Phew. But I don't know about you, but I have about 40 of those pop quizzes every day, which are, something has come up and it's challenging and I don't really want to deal with it. And you have a choice in that moment. Oh, I don't want to deal with it, or yes, I do want to deal with it. Or no, yes, I do want to deal with it. So, the training with Swamiji was a lot like tonight, actually, showing up here and hearing, hey, so-and-so can't sing, so somebody else is going to sing, and not having any time to rehearse. Perfect vintage Swami. That was just great. So thank you. That was really fun. That was a happy memory of so many opportunities. I shared last Monday night I was working at Crystal Clarity years ago, and I was in a terrible mood, and the phone rang. Hello? Karen, is that you? Oh, hi, Swami. How are you? Good, sir. Good girl. Can I talk to Padma? Good girl. I picked it up just a little bit, and he gave me a reward. Do you remember when Master came upon Swamiji, and he said, how are you doing? And Swami was in a bad way also, and Swami said, well, good. Good, Master said, and just zipped right on by. He didn't give him an ounce of sympathy. And I don't think I ever got an ounce of sympathy either. Swamiji put me in a job. David referenced the happy days at Ananda when there were a lot of challenging and interesting people, and we were all working together in a small space. And I was in an office with a bunch of people, I think 4 different people who just loved making life difficult for each other. I won't go into the detail. But, you know, office politics of the worst kind. And I was a little annoyed by it often. And Swami kept me in that job for 7 years. And right near the end of it, in a meeting where I wasn't present, Swamiji said, yes, I know so-and-so is terrible and behaving terribly, but Karen is too sensitive. It's good for her. Okay, so I cooked. It was good for me. And I'm grateful for it. You know, when I first came to Ananda, I committed deeply to do whatever Swami asked of me. And I can say that in every case but one that I can think of, I said yes. So I feel really happy about that. And he did give me lots of opportunities to go through the ringer on it. I worked for about 6 years. I do long projects on the village planning process. Very frequent meetings with angry neighbors, lots of meetings with county supervisors, lobbying, politics, pretty much by myself. Nobody else at Ananda was interested in that kind of work. And at the end of that long process, unanimously, the Board of Supervisors voted to double our allowable housing units on the property. Hooray, fabulous, unbelievable. We were so happy about it. Swami saw me, and the only thing he said was, don't rest for a moment until it's completely finished. Okay, nishkam karma. But he was right. Turned out he was right. We couldn't start the building process at the time that we finished that decision, so we had to postpone. The lawsuit years were just starting. We couldn't put resources into building. When we finally could start building again, it cost 2 or 3 times as much to lay in the infrastructure. So it's huge, it's sad, too bad, and Swami knew. If we could have pushed it forward then, it would have been the right thing to do. I'll just close with a couple of little stories of Swami. Watching Swami totally untouched, his reactive process completely untouched. As he was getting older, he was a little unstable on his feet, and as he would totter off down a stage, sometimes he would just start falling forward, you know, like that. And for some reason, David was always like about 5 feet away and could dash over. He would just fall over, and his face would show absolutely like nothing was happening. And David would catch him, not a ripple. He wouldn't even look at David at all. David would right him back on his feet, and just like that little Energizer bunny, he just kept going, nothing, just nothing. It was beautiful to see, no reaction. Same if he was giving a talk or he was singing and he would forget a line, absolutely nothing, no trace of anything. And then one of my favorite, this is just the tiniest thing, but I just loved it. After it was the end of the lawsuit years, it had been so awful, some of the stuff that had been coming up. And I don't know, if I'd been Swami, I would have been mortified at just how much bad publicity he endured and negativity. And he had a big event at his house, and he said, I've just written a new song, and I want to share it with you all. And we were all excited. What was it going to be? And he sang, Jenny will love me, I'm sure of it now. And I just thought to myself, wow, a chipper little love song after what you've just been through. It was just beautiful. It moved me deeply. A nice response to it. Anyway, Shanti is right. We could go on for weeks and months telling you charming stories, but thank you all for the chance to share a few.
Tara's brave hill so quiet, the day I came there, not a green leaf stirred on the air, not a bird did proclaim ancient grandeur and fame, only ruins, faint memories declare. I marveled to think, how can greatness e'er die? How can song disperse in the sky? How can hopes and dreams fade? How the warrior's sharp blade become dust? Was victory a lie? I stood there and pondered the great deeds of men's past, how like clouds in the sunset no glory can last. Even we, as we labor to achieve some bright end, must accept after glory that the night will descend. I've dreamed a broad rainbow over thicket and thorn, over crags that call tarry, your hopes are forlorn. All too oft in my dreaming, courage turned to despair, till I learned that success is but the courage to dare. As I gazed and thought sadly of Tara's demise, suddenly I saw her walls rise, saw her long regal halls, heard her people's brave calls, as though time had doffed a disguise. And I knew in that moment the deeds that men do never die. Each victory is true. Every effort we spend gives more strength in the end, till our gladness in life's avenue.
True joy is not an emotional state. It is not that which one feels when some desire is satisfied or when everything at last goes well. It is inward. It is of the soul. It can be developed first not by reacting emotionally to outward things. Don't be tossed on alternating waves of success and failure. Don't join in their excitement the buyers and sellers in the marketplace of this world. Be calm in yourself, even-minded and cheerful through all the gains and losses of life. Then, in calm, deep meditation, feel the joy of the soul. Hold on to that joy through all activities. Don't confine it, but try ever to expand it until your little joy becomes the vast joy of God.
When I was thinking about how to speak about joy today, I couldn't help but wanting to start all the way back at the beginning and to say, well, in the beginning there was God, and God created the universe, because joy is permeated into every aspect of reality. And when I was thinking about what we're all doing here and what Swami brought to us and the model and the example that he showed us, I couldn't help but consider what the essence and the goal of self-realization is. The goal of self-realization is to awaken to the truth that we are divine consciousness. And divine consciousness is Sat Chit Ananda, ever-present, ever-existing, ever-new bliss. And Swami, of course, he knew this, and not only did he know this, but he lived it. He shared it with us in every single aspect of his life. Every story that's being shared, every song, every melody, every talk, even in his very eyes. Shanti was commenting on the beauty of the picture that we have behind us, and I couldn't help sitting in the back but notice we have this picture repeated 3 times on the altar today. But when you look at it from here to the center all the way to the end, it's not the same picture, because joy is ever new. The experience of feeling that love, that joy, that connection with the divine, the experience is always different. Every time we hear a song or a melody, I was sharing with Shanti earlier today, I have a different experience with Swamiji than anybody else standing on the dais and speaking today, which is that I am one of the many of us here at Ananda now who didn't know Swami, who was never in the same room as Swami, never sat at one of his satsangs or his talks. But I guarantee you that I know Swami, as we all do, just as Shanti was sharing earlier in the day, because we can feel his love and we can experience him, and it's through the joy that he shares with us. Joy is the reflection of every single spiritual quality, of every single emotion, and it's so much more than just a stagnant experience that we have where we can feel joyful and lose joy and get emotional and have enthusiasm and let it go. What Swamiji gave to us, this great gift, is that just like a diamond, there are so many aspects to joy. Joy can be exuberant and out loud and singing, little Kathy went laughing, or Jenny will love me. We can experience joy in that sense. Or the courage of the hill that was Tara. You can experience the quiet calmness of joy, looking into the eyes of Master, as Shanti was sharing earlier today. Or in a precious moment and an experience of holding your great teacher and helping him down the stairs as he's wavering. We can experience joy as great power, because it all comes back to that one very aspect. There is nothing but joy. Everything is joy. And the great gift that we have as disciples of Yogananda and as students of this great teacher, what Swamiji has given us is the courage and the power, the strength and the fortitude to fight for it, no matter what, to choose joy in every single moment. And it seems so easy, and then we get out into the world and we just miss it for a moment. But Swamiji showed us through his life, through his example, through the very vibration of Ananda and everything that he shares with us, that it is a battle worth fighting in every single moment. Yogananda has a beautiful quote that when I saw it, I immediately wrote it right away and put it on my desk. And it says, "Life is a battle for joy every step of the way. May I fight to win the battle where I stand now." And that's what Swami Kriyananda gave to us. That's what we get to do, the realization that in that joy we lose more of ourself and we fall into that place of self-forgetfulness, true knowing that we are one with the divine, and we live in bliss. And we realize that there's nothing at all to lose in that moment, but that there's everything to gain. And then that keeps going on and on and on, and the journey keeps bringing us closer and closer to bliss until there's nothing left of ourselves. Until, just as Shanti was reading earlier today, Swami can say, "Nothing in this world is of interest to me anymore because I'm living in bliss, because I feel that, I experience it in friendship, in kindness, in everything that I do." You know, there's this story, one of my favorite stories from Swami Kriyananda as we have known him, is the story, I don't actually know, of course, who the devotee is, but a devotee telling a story about being on pilgrimage with Swami and many others, and they were in a bus, and this person was going through some hardship and trial in their life, and so they were grieving and feeling the pain and the sadness of that. And they very sweetly and vulnerably in this book with their excerpt, they write about how they were just kind of sitting off by themselves on the side of the bus and sort of pouting and moping maybe a little, or maybe really just feeling the grief, as we have all the complexity of those human emotions. But the energy they were putting off everybody was just giving them space. And so they were sitting in that sadness and that solitude. And then Swami comes over onto the bus and sits down next to this person with a harmonium and just starts playing chords and saying, I think I'm coming up with the chords to one of Master's chants, and just starts playing the chant. And then suddenly this person is chanting along with them, and they're in an experience of joy, because joy is the sword that slashes through all delusion. When we are in joy, nothing else can be present with us. We are with God. We are laughing and playing with God, just as a few weeks ago we heard on Easter Sunday when Asha quoted the final line of Samadhi, "A tiny bubble of laughter, I am become the sea of mirth itself." And that's what Swami's given us. That's the charge and the great privilege that we all have, to race toward joy and to know that the more we dive, the further we leap off of that ledge, the more that we're going to find everything that we are looking for.
One finds love not by being loved, but by loving. We can never know love if we try to draw others to ourselves, nor can we find it by centering our love in them. For love is infinite, it is never ours to create. We can only channel it from its source in infinity to all whom we meet. The more we forget ourselves in giving to others, the better we can understand what love really is. And the more we love as channels for God's love, the more we can understand that His is the one love in all the universe.
Thank you. The prayer in the Festival of Light, that keeps running through my mind today as I think about Swami is, Lord, I offer up the little light that is in me into thy blazing light of infinity. Grant me the grace to know thee, and make me ever increasingly a pure channel of thy love to all. Swami was that for every single one of us and continues to be. And I so appreciated what Lakshmi was saying earlier, whether there were physical contacts with him in this incarnation, or whether our contact is purely through the power of spirit. All of us know him, feel him, live with him every single day that we walk this path and are a part of Ananda. The power of his devotion to Master and to God was the pole star of every moment of his incarnation. And he channeled that into every single one of us with equal power. And his power to meet us appropriately where we are, where we were in every moment, was a particular expression of divine consciousness. In Education for Life, he articulates the whole purpose of education and life as the expansion of awareness so that we increasingly can relate to realities beyond our own, but in his state of consciousness. And as he attuned more and more deeply to Master and to God, there was no separation. And so he was able to understand exactly what we needed in every moment. And looking at and watching friends now who are living and breathing this path and consciously attuning to Swami, he's doing the same thing by our open-hearted surrender and welcoming of him into our lives and our devotion to him. There's a reciprocity that becomes so powerfully possible, and watching how those of us who've been on this path for 50 years and those of us that have been on this path for 2 years with focused, deep devotion are able to attune and understand the teachings and go deeper and grow stronger day by day by day is a powerful example of how love transforms. There are a few little vignettes of time with Swamiji that I wanted to share. Some of them were with me and some of them were observing him, relating to other people, but they all speak to the power of love in different forms. I was facing a particularly challenging karma at one point here, a few years after I'd come to live at Ananda Village, Ananda Palo Alto. And I was in a satsang with Swami. And just the weight of the karma was really, really intense and heavy. And I found myself just tracking his eyes. And he was, scanning the room and connecting with various people. But every time we made eye contact, he held it for a very long time. And it happened multiple times during the satsang. And it was as if
a poison was being drawn out of someone's blood system. I felt the weight of it just rolling off of me. And I left, and I know that the karma was not the same after. I could feel a physical lightness and a spiritual lightness in me. And it took me a little while to digest what was happening, but there are so many stories of saints and Swami taking on the karma of other people. But I knew it, and I felt it, and I know that it was a pivotal moment where I don't know if I could face the karma that was in front of me fully, and I think he knew it, and he just showed up and took some of it on. It was such an incredible power of love and a commitment that I know he holds for every single one of us. And I believe very strongly that by prayer and powerful attunement, now we can continue to draw on him in the same way. Other lighter stories. A few years before his passing, I think it was a few years before, though it might have been the fall before, he came and gave a satsang for the school here. And his chair was placed here on the dais, and the 70 or so children and teachers of the school were gathered around, sitting on the floor. And beforehand, we had prepared thank you cards for him, and we talked with the students about what he meant to all of us in the context of our school and everything that they were receiving because they were a part of Living Wisdom. And so they very thoughtfully, lovingly made him pictures and cards, and we compiled them into this kit about this big, and Helen presented it to Swamiji, and he received it graciously, and I assumed, that he would take it and bring it with him home and maybe read it later. And he insisted that he open every single one. And he looked at the cards and the pictures, and he asked who every child was, and he spent a moment with them, one by one by one. And sometimes there were additional comments. One little child, he looked at their work, and he said, "You need to learn to concentrate." And you can take that as, ooh, that's a little harsh for a 6-year-old. But wow, to have a saint focus their energy on you, give you an instruction, and let that sink into your consciousness at age 6, I can't wait to see what her journey looks like and how much impact that has on this incarnation and all those to come. He was always ready to be fully present with what was needed in every moment, easy or hard. I think we all can continue to open ourselves with tremendous gratitude for the gift of this life. And I think it's our divine responsibility to meet him with the same level, or increasingly the same level, of devotion, offering our gratitude back to Swamiji, to Master, to God, and then to look forward at one another and to pour the same intentionality of love and devotion into our relationships and into every moment of our lives. I'm going to close with a reading. This book was just given to me. It's The Path, and Swamiji's autobiography. And the last words felt important, and so here they are for you. By odd coincidence, I am writing these lines, and it is my birthday, May 19th, 1976. Exactly 50 years have passed since the Life Here Chronicled began. Community festivities celebrating the event have, in one form or another, taken up most of the day. This afternoon, gazing on the smiling faces that were gathered around me in blessing, I thought of our divine beloved, whose love they reflected. Blessed are they, I quoted, who come in the name of the Lord. It is evening now. I sit peacefully in my home. My gaze takes an expanded view through the large living room window, hills, sky, and slowly wakening stars. Such, I reflect, is the path. Wherever man stands upon it, his soul evolution stretches out before him to infinity. The stages on the spiritual journey are only temporary. Temporary, too, are its tests, as also its fulfillments. God alone is real. Lord, I pray silently. May I never become attached to thy dream of creation, nor yet to the path that leads out of the dream, but only to thee, to thy love, to thy eternal joy.
Long I've called you, my Lord, long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Long I've called you, my Lord, long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come?
Petal offering right now as we hear an instrumental version of peace. And after we've all had the opportunity to come up and offer rose petals, then we'll just move into a choir or a few people, Swamiji being one of them, singing peace as a way to close the program. Of course, we'll close with a prayer. So please feel free to come up as soon as the music starts and take your time at the altar. We had a little misunderstanding of the schedule, so we're running exactly 30 minutes later than we typically do. But let's all just decide that that's our great good karma tonight.